Welcome to TCEA Remote Learning Session. In today's session, we'll be talking about keeping remote learning simple. What tools do you need to get started? Before we go any further, though, I'd like to point out that you can find other videos at tcea.org/remote learning. tcea.org/remote learning. My name's Miguel Gulen. I'm a Director of Professional Development for TCEA. You can reach me at 1-800-282-8232 or via Twitter at mglearn. If you'd like to follow up on some of my blog entries, you can find those at ly.tca.org/tcamgblog. And of course, I have a lot of resources available at no cost to you at mglearn.org. Feel free to use what you need. So in today's session, we're going to be talking about keeping remote learning simple. And I have some specific resources for you and the link is included in the show notes. But as you can see, we'll be talking a little bit about how to keep this simple. Now, one of the most important things that you need to do is to decide on your communications. And that's why I've sort of identified that as step one. Decide on your communications. Ask yourself, how are you going to communicate with various stakeholder groups? Now, a lot of times, the communication tools that we use in schools has already been determined, but there are ways to make their selection and use easier. So let me encourage you to chat with school administration if they haven't already to identify what tool are you going to use. Same thing with your grade level or department team, parents, and students. Clarifying that and making it really obvious how you're going to facilitate those communications can alleviate stress and keep things going forward. One of the suggestions that I have right off the bat, and you may have read about it in a recent TCA Tech Notes blog entry, is how to manage your phone and text messages for work. Now, usually at work, we have our own phone or an office phone that we can refer to. We might have a voice over IP device that we can use, but if we're at home, sometimes that's not available. We have to fall back on using our landline or our mobile device, our smartphone. The problem with that is that you may not want to give out your smartphone number, the number that you use for family and your own business, to all of your parents as well as your coworkers. You may have wanted to keep that private. So how do you deal with that? Well, you do what Eustis ISD did. They followed my advice and used a personal Google Voice account. Did you know you could set up a personal Google Voice account? You can. All you need is a personal Gmail account. Now, school districts typically have to pay for Google Voice for their institutions. However, this is your phone. This is your personal device. So what you can do, if you click on this Learn More link, it will take you to to my blog on maintaining teacher privacy with Google Voice. And what this does is it actually walks you through the steps and answers some of the questions that sometimes come up. For example, one of the first questions is, how much does this cost? And the answer is, in the United States, Google Voice's calling rate is $0. That means it's free. If for some reason it ends up not being free, you are able to generate a billing history and share that billing history with your supervisor. I know that some school districts have discussed actually providing some kind of reimbursement. If you're asked to produce some list of phone calls that you made to parents with with your call history, you're able to get that from Google Voice and then provide that. What's neat about Google Voice is that it lives like an app on your phone. So after you connect, you go to their website, voice.google.com, logged in with your personal Gmail account, because this does require a personal Gmail account. you'll actually be able to install an app on your phone as well as interact through the web with your Google Voice number. Think about how valuable that is. Instead of having to deal with all your work phone calls and text messages that you're going to get over the next 8 weeks or longer, you will be able to get all that sent to your Google Voice account, and you can interact with that on your computer, or you can use the handy app on your smartphone. You can even start phone calls on the computer and talk on those through your headset or mic, uh, or you can have start the call on the computer and then send it to your phone. So again, the steps are pretty easy. Once you log in with your personal Gmail account, you go to voice.google.com. You'll be asked to select a phone number for your particular city or area code. As you can see here, I have a few nearby cities, and so I picked one, and then I get a list of phone numbers. So I pick one that I can use, I and then I'm ready to connect it to my real phone number. Now, whenever you make a call with Google Voice, the person who's receiving the call, the parent, the coworker, they don't see your real smartphone number. They see the Google Voice number. So, wow, that's great, because that means then that they will not get access to your personal phone number. You'll have to verify, as you saw there, sending the code, but then you can also, like I said, once you're verified, you'll see your call list over here on the left-hand side. You'll have a message about how many calls maybe you've missed, or and how many voicemails you have. And you can see here that you can decide, am I going to call as my Google Voice number, or am I going to call as something else? And you can type in any phone number you want here in the United States. Now notice that your next step is really just to make some phone calls via the Voice app on your smartphone. You can get the app through the Google Play Store or iTunes. So very easy to do, and get that set up. Now I do have some recommended settings that you'll want to sort of explore and pay attention to. Um, and I've outlined those in the Maintain Teacher Privacy with Google Voice. That's the article right there, and you'll be able to access it as one of the resources um, on my resource page. So now that step one, communications, is out of the way, what do you do next? Step two is really to decide on a learning management system. There are a zillion different learning management systems available to you, but I would encourage you to pick one. It can be very easy to get sort of stuck trying to have lots of different communication devices, but you'll want to focus in on one particular one. So a lot of school districts are turning to Zoom because they've offered free basic um, system that you can get. It sort of removes the time limit and gives you some other free options. And if you click on one of these icons, the Zoom icons, you'll actually get to see my video series on Zoom. So you'll get an intro into how to set it up properly for use with K-12 students and how to use it. So that's two videos. And then one of the things that you want to discuss is, if you decide to use a particular service like Seesaw, they have a free version, but they also have a plus version that you'll want to check out. And they work a little bit differently, but not too much. So let's take a quick look at what you might do in grade levels K through 3. If you're a K3 teacher, I would recommend that your school administration use one of these tools, whether it's Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Slack, or Google Classroom. What I like about Zoom, though, of course, is the face-to-face component, the ability to quickly record video to your computer that you can later save to Google Drive or YouTube if that's a need. But Microsoft Teams certainly has built-in video capability. Slack, which I know some school districts use, can have video capability interface with a third-party alternative. And of course, Google Classroom actually comes with Google Meet. So you can take advantage of Google Meet, which has been sort of opened up for schools. The For your grade level team, I would use whatever tool everybody else is using in terms of school administration. We're not talking necessarily about those phone calls, because you could use your Google Voice for that, and probably everybody's familiar with that with you now. But using a tool like Zoom could be really handy. And then if you're using Seesaw, make sure that you clarify for parents that they need to be using Seesaw Family, and for students that they're using the class version. So this may require a different app, or you can actually log into the website. And again, I invite you to click on these images, because they'll provide you with some additional videos that you can watch. Now, for grade level 6 through 12, you're obviously dealing with a different group of students, but for students, I would use Google Classroom. Microsoft Teams are great tools to use. Definitely encourage you to think about doing that. If you want to keep up with parents or guardians, you can use the Remind app. Um, but again, a lot of these tools is really what you're comfortable with and what your district has already decided on. So try to limit the amount of tools that you use. Now, the third step is really to select some kind of assessment tool. You'll see that there's Quizlet, Kahoot, Quiz, Quizzes, and Note. These are all wonderful resources that you can find. And if you click on the pictures, you'll actually get links to videos and tutorials that you can access about each one of these. But again, I would just try to pick one that you could use, maybe Kahoot or Quizlet, or even Note, because it can be overwhelming trying to manage all of these different tools, and you want to go with one that's going to be easy, perhaps one that you've already used with your students. If you haven't used one, then I would get the one that works best for you. Also, don't be afraid to come up with alternative assessments. Maybe ask students to write a poem, a story, or journal entry. Maybe perform a skit in front of a video and share that. Depending on what tool you're using to capture students, Seesaw or Classroom or Teams, you'll have the ability to restrict access to their creation until you've had a chance to view it, and then you can certainly republish it or share it with everyone. One of my favorite tools is Flipgrid, and Flipgrid makes it very easy to capture video, and so you could certainly provide students with a prompt and then invite them to respond to that. Another possibility, especially for younger children, is to ask them to fill out a form that you've set up where you're creating a table in Google Docs, um, and maybe ask them to describe what they're seeing and looking at. Uh, you know, it, quick reflection on this as you're jumping into all of these different things. Try to keep it simple. Remember these three steps about how to decide on your communications. Your communications are going to be very important. Then deciding on what your learning management system is and how you're going to stay in contact with students, parents, and colleagues. So I would ask you to sort of reflect on what your answer is. If you have a solid answer for each one of these questions, then I think you're well prepared to keep remote learning simple and stress-free. If you don't, or if you're wavering, you're not sure, don't hesitate to reach out to TCEA's team. We'll be happy to provide some guidance and suggestions to make sure that you have the right tool for the job. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate your feedback here, and let me invite you, if you have any questions, to connect with me on Twitter at mglearn. Of course, I'm available through email at mgulen@tcea.org, or you can reach me by phone. Please send a text message first. This is my Google Voice number at 210-617-3330. Of course, don't forget that you can go to the TCEA remote learning site to find other great videos to support you in remote learning.